Noah's Ark and the Great Flood. Imagine this. You're looking at the biggest construction project in human history. No cranes, no bulldozers, no power tools. Just one man, his family, and a blueprint given by God himself. The task? Build a floating zoo that could survive the end of the world. Welcome back again. Today we're diving into one of the most incredible survival stories ever told. The tale of Noah's Ark. Whether you're 8 or 80, this story has everything. Adventure, mystery, hope, and yes, lots and lots of animals. Picture the world thousands of years ago. Cities bustling with people, but something's gone terribly wrong. The Bible tells us that wickedness had spread everywhere. People had forgotten how to be kind to each other, how to care for creation, how to live the way God intended. But in all this darkness, there was one bright light. A man named Noah. Now Noah wasn't a superhero with a cape. He was just a regular guy who tried to do the right thing. He was what the Bible calls righteous, which basically means he was a good person who listened to God and cared about others. One day, while Noah was probably just going about his normal routine, maybe feeding his animals or working in his garden, God spoke to him with news that would change everything. "Noah," God said, "I'm going to send a flood to wash the world clean and start fresh, but I want you and your family to survive. I want you to build an ark." Now, when God says build an ark, he doesn't just mean throw some wood together and hope for the best. God gave Noah incredibly detailed instructions, like the world's first architectural blueprint. The measurements were massive, 300 cubits long, 50 cubits wide, and 30 cubits high. In today's measurements, that's about 450 feet long, longer than a football field. It was 75 feet wide and 45 feet tall. That's like a 4-story building floating on water. God told Noah to use gopher wood, which scholars think might be cypress, to coat it inside, and out with pitch to make it waterproof and to build it with 3 decks, basically 3 floors. There had to be rooms throughout the ship, a window and a door in the side. But here's the kicker. Noah had probably never seen rain like this before. Some scholars believe it had never even rained on Earth the way we know it. Yet Noah trusted God completely and got to work. Think about that level of faith. Building something for a disaster you've never experienced, following instructions for something you've never seen. So Noah and his sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, started building. Can you imagine the neighbors' reactions? "Hey Noah, what you building there?" "Oh, just a massive boat." "Cool. But, where's the ocean?" "Well, that's coming too." For years, possibly decades, they worked, cutting trees, shaping beams, hammering, sawing, measuring. Noah's wife and daughters-in-law probably helped prepare food and supplies. This wasn't a weekend DIY project. This was their life's work. And through it all, Noah kept explaining to anyone who'd listen. God's sending a flood. You should turn back to God while there's still time. But sadly, people just laughed and went about their business. The ark slowly took shape, this massive wooden ship sitting on dry ground, far from any body of water large enough to float it. Then came moving day, but this wasn't your typical moving day. God told Noah, "Take with you 7 pairs of every clean animal and 2 pairs of every unclean animal. Also take 7 pairs of every kind of bird." Now animals from all over the earth start showing up at Noah's Ark. Not just the cute, friendly ones, we're talking about every species. Imagine the parade. Elephants trumpeting as they lumber up the ramp, giraffes having to duck their heads to get through the door, lions and lambs walking side by side, monkeys chattering excitedly, bears ambling along, exotic birds in brilliant colors, and yes, even the creepy crawlies like spiders and snakes. How did they all fit? The ark was huge, but scholars estimate there were probably around 16,000 animals on board. God designed it perfectly. With 3 decks, there was plenty of room for living quarters, food storage, and all the animals. But here's the most amazing part. The animals came willingly. God called them, and they came. Natural enemies walked peacefully together. It was like a preview of paradise, the way things were meant to be. Then it started. First, just a few drops. Then steady rain. Then the Bible tells us something incredible happened. All the fountains of the great deep burst forth, and the windows of the heavens were opened. This wasn't just rain. The very earth was breaking open, releasing water from underground reservoirs, while torrential rains poured from the sky. It was like nature itself was turning inside out. For 40 days and 40 nights, it poured. The water rose higher and higher. First it covered the fields, then the houses, then the hills, and finally even the mountains disappeared under the endless sea. Inside the ark, Noah's family could hear the storm raging outside. The massive boat, which had seemed so sturdy on dry land, was now tossing and turning on waves bigger than buildings. But God had designed it perfectly. The ark rode the waves like a cork, keeping everyone inside safe and dry. Outside, the whole world was being washed clean. It's a sobering reminder that our actions have consequences and that God takes justice seriously. But inside that floating refuge, hope was alive. After 40 days, the rain stopped. But Noah and his family couldn't just hop out and go home. The whole earth was still covered with water. So they waited and waited and waited. In fact, they were on that ark for over a year. Can you imagine? 8 people and thousands of animals living together in a floating home for more than 12 months. Think about the daily routine. Feeding all those animals, cleaning up after them, making sure everyone stayed healthy and calm. Noah's family became the world's first zookeepers. They had to learn how to care for every species on Earth. But through it all, they trusted that God knew what He was doing. They were patient, they worked together, and they kept faith that dry land would appear again. Finally, the ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat. But Noah was wise. He didn't just throw open the doors. He sent out birds to test whether the earth was ready. First, Noah sent out a raven, but it just kept flying back and forth, no good news yet. Then he sent out a dove. The first time she came back with nothing. The second time, this is the moment we've all been waiting for. She returned carrying a fresh olive leaf in her beak. Can you imagine the celebration inside that ark? After more than a year of floating on endless water, here was proof. Plants were growing again. The earth was coming back to life. To this day, a dove with an olive branch is a universal symbol of peace and hope. It reminds us that after every storm, there's a rainbow. After every ending, there's a new beginning. Finally, God told Noah, "Come out of the ark." Imagine that moment, stepping onto solid ground after more than a year at sea. The animals came pouring out, ready to fill the earth again with life and beauty. And Noah's first act? He built an altar and thanked God for saving them. He didn't take credit for the amazing ark or brag about surviving the flood. He gave thanks to the one who made it all possible. Then God painted the most beautiful promise across the sky, the very first rainbow. And He made a covenant, a sacred promise. Never again will I destroy the earth with a flood. Every time you see a rainbow, remember this promise. So what can we learn from Noah's incredible adventure? That obedience matters, even when it's hard. That God keeps His promises. That new beginnings are always possible. And that sometimes when everything seems lost, salvation comes in the most unexpected ways. The next time you see a rainbow stretching across the sky, remember Noah, his family, and their floating zoo that carried hope through the storm and into a brand new world. Thanks for joining us on this incredible journey. If you enjoyed this story, hit that like button and subscribe for more amazing Bible adventures. What other stories would you like us to explore? Let us know in the comments below.